I need to take a 1/4 inch off this board, but the dust collector is such a pain in the butt to use. Oh, there it is. There's got to be a better way. Jeff, can you help me out? I need a button right here to turn the dust collector on and off. Yes, this is large and ridiculous. It's exactly what we need. It'll fit right there. Plug the power cord in, I can plug the motor in. I just need a way to put all these things together. An enclosure. I wonder how the internet can help us with that. All right, Mark, how can you help me out with this enclosure problem? Let's see. Practically new, comes with a router. The hobby wasn't for him. Seems like an incredibly expensive and complicated solution to my problem. Let's go ahead and give Matt a call. That'll do. Thank you, Matt. How to design the enclosure.
Again, learning and experience will be key to your success with tabs holding on to your product properly and not flinging apart. If you fling a couple parts, you know you're at the edge.
All right, well, thank you, Kevin. Let's see what we can do. I think that'll work. Got a space for the switch, got a space for the plugs, we got sides, we got a back, a big space missing in our workpiece. Let's get this thing, let's check tool paths. Show simulation. That's not gonna work. We're cutting plywood. That's better. All right, I think we need some electricity. Start with the trim router. All the electricity, now we need some information. Huh. It's the last time you saw one of those plugs. Now that I have everything plugged in, I move over to the Carbide Motion software to set up the CNC and home the X, Y, Z axes. I managed to smash the tool into the bit setter in this process. Whoa. Jesus. It turns out that when you're homing the Z-axis, you center the tool over the bit setter, and don't worry about all of that up and down business. Like Kevin Barnett just mentioned, learning and experience will be key. Learning has occurred. All right, number 251, spiral down. That should work with our plywood. I think Matt might have put this on a little tight. New wrenches. It took about 15 minutes to get this collet nut loose. Every 14mm wrench in my toolbox was too thick to fit on the flats of the collet. Even the engineer of the house saw me struggling and came to lend a hand. I ended up having to use the angle grinder to shave down one of my wrenches until it fit. The collet nut did come loose, and we inserted that 1/4 inch downcut tool. We set the original Shapeoko wrench to the collet nut, and we'll tighten it just enough. We went ahead and set the initial clamping position on the wasteboard. The first part of the program leaves 2 marks and empty spaces on the workpiece, which allows us to pause the program to adjust the clamps accordingly. Once the clamps were in, and we set the local X, Y, and Z 0, the latter involving a trip to the bit setter, we started the program. It turns out that I really have it in for that bit setter. As you saw in the last sequence, I already had the tool installed, so when I started the program, I just turned on the router and hit go. It turns out that there's a tool change sequence first, including another trip to the bit setter, and the software will tell you when to start the router.
Oh, God. Yeah, that did not work at all then.
More learning has occurred. I'm clearly using a bit of satire here to describe how this Shapeoko Pro ended up in our garage. In reality, a CNC has been on our list for many years, and we've watched many hours of Kevin Barnett and the rest of the crew at Carbide 3D with their outstanding tutorials. This project to make a dust collector switch enclosure was just a low-threat way of learning how to use the machine. Given our current skill set and tools, a rabbet joint plywood box would have been much easier and faster to make on the table saw. The real first project for the Shapeoko will be milling some sheet aluminum to bend into drawers for a system that fits under the back seat in my truck. If you're one of the 3 people that watched our diesel bug video and are actually subjecting yourself to more of this channel, the new fuel tank has been delivered and just needs a mounting system to be installed. We're going to use the Shapeoko to make the base of that system. It will also be used for several other projects on that boat. In fact, I was emptying the dishwasher and thought of a much better way to organize a silverware drawer. When I came to my senses, I found that I was taking photos of my flatware next to a ruler. This has snowballed out of control. For those that are interested, I stepped up from the recommended settings for my material and tool, using an 1/8 inch depth of cut and a feed rate of 120 inches per minute. It sounded like the router was bogging just slightly, but there wasn't any chatter and it turned out fairly well, as you can see here. That'll do. Got the sandstone tear out on the back from the downcut bit, which is actually the front. I don't think it'll work. I used a box knife to cut the tabs and cleaned them up on my sander. I checked that all of the parts fit and mocked up the box to check my rabbet joints, and set my measurements for the side panels were off. About 1/16. But should still hold a switch. If learning keeps occurring at this rate, I'm going to be a genius by the end of this project. Off camera, I corrected the error and cut out new side panels. I then used some wood glue and just about every clamp I possessed to turn my plywood panels into some kind of Borg probe. While the glue was drying, I screwed a piece of milled down lumber to a stud behind the dust collector and pre-drilled some holes for the bolts that I'll use to attach the box. Once the glue was dry, I removed all of the clamps and popped off the back panel. I'll attach that with screws to allow for maintenance. I switched to my wiring tools and got everything hooked up. It was then a simple matter of clamping the box in place, drilling pilot holes, installing the bolts, and screwing on the back panel. Alright. Let's see how we did. I think that'll work. Get some electricity running into this thing. I like it. Yeah, this thing needs another 1/4 inch taken off of it. No problem at all.